What lurks behind this unassuming storefronts in Cleveland, Ohio? It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. Learn the history of Wicca and the tale of those who brought it to the United States. See the tools of magic, once used by practitioners of the arcane arts. It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
Welcome back to the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, Frankenstein Radio Control Room, which oh geez. All right. Frankenstein Radio Control Room. All right, I think I got rid of the delay there. Welcome back to the Buckland Museum, Frankenstein Radio Control Room, which exists somewhere deep within the eternal now, ever happening. We are brought to you today by our friends at the Cleveland Area Pagan Pride, which happens every August. Not 100% sure what the plan for 2020 is right now, but it is an important event for all of us in the area. Just Google Cleveland Area Pagan Pride or use the link that you can't really see there, and you can find out what's going on. Let's see. You may have heard that we will be reopening on May 19th. That's tomorrow, and I am very excited to share the collection with the world. But it's going to be pretty rigid for a while. We've set it up where you can order tickets online at bucklandmuseum.org, and I appreciate if you do that because I can only have 6 people in here at a time, so it'd be kind of difficult to, manage it. And I want everyone to have a wonderful experience here. So we received a package from a Michael Minnie, and he was on a plane with my partner in the museum, Tony. And he said, Tony, I carved these beautiful witches, and I would like to donate them to your collection. And though, we do specialize in pieces that were owned by like luminaries in the occult arts, it's also, there's such an incredible folk art angle of what we do here. So I'm very excited to check these out. I haven't seen them yet. Tony saw them. I saw her yesterday. And let's see here. There's a letter. Tony, I'm honored to be able to present these lovely ladies to you. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope our paths cross again in the future. So let's see. I would enjoy a photo, and looking forward to see a picture of them displayed. All right, well, I'm excited to see these. I hope you are as well. Oh my gosh, these are adorable. Look at these witches. They got their besoms. They're flying around. So I think I know exactly where we're going to put them in the museum. So keep posted, and I'll, maybe in a future episode, I'll show them off. Thank you so much, Michael Minnie from, let's see here. Where is he from? 49270. So Pittsburgh-ish area. Thank you. So, one of the things is when you come to the museum, you're going to have to wear a mask. And a witch from Medina made us these beautiful ones that we're going to have on sale. I might throw a couple of them on the website later tonight if you'd like one, so check them out. Oh, all right. So today we're going to be hanging out with Maja D'Aoust, who used to, I know her from, she used to co-host Eric Davis's Expanding Minds podcast years ago. I think that's where she first came on my radar. tomorrow we're going to be revealing her show, Witch Vision, Scrying Through the Mind's Eye, Art of Maja D'Aoust, in our rotating exhibit space. And I really can't wait to show these. We were supposed to show this art. Well, the show was supposed to be over 2 weeks ago, but COVID-19 had other plans. So I'm really, really glad that she was nice enough to let us hold it over and start it tomorrow. And I can't wait till you come in and check them out. She's an artist. She's an oracle. She's a visionary and an esoteric researcher. And I'm guessing that she probably has been one since day one. So ever since she was a little girl. So we'll find out about that. And welcome to the virtual version of the Buckland Museum. You were actually planning on being here on May 2nd, but like I said before, COVID-19 had a different plan. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
So am I right? Were you a witch from day one?
It started pretty early. I have a really freaky memory, and my memory as a child is that I had an out-of-body experience when I was about 2 years old. I got sick a lot when I was little, and so I was suffering from asthma. And at 2 years old, I left my body and I saw myself from above myself. So I saw my body and I was on the ceiling looking down. And I told my mother about it that next morning and told her the entire experience, which also helped me remember. So I was always very interested in weird things I couldn't explain. As a teenager, I spent a lot of time in nature and just in the forest. And so got really interested in how nature works, natural laws, things like that. So yeah, I've been, I would say I'm a lifer. Yes.
So one thing that one of the only real things that I've been enjoying about right now is I go hiking probably 4 days a week. And it's been really wonderful to go through, like, you know, come into Beltane and go through it and just really see like the micro turns of the wheel of the year. You know what I mean? Like that.
The few things that's real. It's funny that you said one of the few real things. Like I always, no matter what time period or day of the week people make up, or months, or how they do a lunar calendar, solar calendar, the things I really feel are the equinoxes and the solstices, right? So as those things kind of click, I swear there's been sometimes I was so feeling it as a result of techniques I do to kind of link in that I was like, oh, it's today. Like it just changed today. Like it's something that you can feel, you can witness, right? Those little, almost imperceptible, but you can feel and sense as the earth kind of goes through its circling cycles. It's so true.
Yeah, it's been nice to be able to get a chance to kind of like tune into that sort of thing in a way where usually what I'm worried about is things like, I have to order this, I have to do that, I have to do this. So, you know, there's been a chance to kind of slow down a bit and actually get to, I don't know, absorb it. So we got a shout out here from our friend Sibel. How's it going? She says she loves them. I think she's talking about the masks. Cool. So Kelvin Fraser says hello. Hello, Kelvin. And there's somebody named Kelvin that kind of has something to do with what we have going on, right?
So true. The teacher I train with, the techniques I was mentioning, is Kelvin deWolfe. He's a Micmac Native American. And through doing his techniques, which involve Indigenous concentration techniques and also electromagnetic. So what he does is, like you were saying, you can come out of thinking about your daily worries. So our mind gets occupied, right, by thoughts that maybe aren't even yours, or they're just like these surface level things that take up your mind space, right? And a big component of even doing regular witchcraft is that you're concentrating and focusing, right? So even like a basic candle ritual where you're focusing intention does a lot of those same types of things. So with Kelvin's stuff, my teacher, it really focuses on the way that you come into being in tune with nature, being in tune with yourself, coming into that flow state like you're talking about, where you don't have other stuff like sticking on your mind or occupying you. That's all the good stuff, man.
So, can you kind of give us like a basic technique in case somebody wanted to like delve into it, like, but you know, a little micro tune into it?
Absolutely. So like I said, it's mostly concentration techniques. So one of the ones that Kelvin teaches is to focus on listening with your ears, right? A lot of us.
So it looks like Maja is frozen. Maybe.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
It was funny because I was talking about listening and then they cut the sound out. That's gremlins for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's you know, even in the technology, there's like the imps and the creatures that, you know, like we kind of used to imagine we're out in the forest, but I find them like deep here, you know, with what we're doing. So what were you saying? You're deep listening?
One of his, yes, deep listening, right? So he has people focus on their perception mechanisms, specifically to such a concentration that you're not doing anything else or thinking of anything else, but you're focusing on listening, no matter what, even if it's like traffic on the street, your refrigerator coming into tune. So you almost go like Spider-Man when he comes into his spidey senses, right?
Okay.
And when you do it, and you practice it, you can hear a fly, right? Like down the street. It's pretty amazing.
So how long have you been practicing these techniques?
Those since about 2010.
2010?
So, yeah.
So let's show some of the art that you have provided us here. So how does that kind of reflect on what's going on in this imagery here?
Yes. So I go into a state, a kind of hypnotic or hypnagogic state using the techniques, and then things appear to me. I have like visions of things. So if you see the one with the guy whose face is kind of going through time.
Yeah.
That's actually, you can perceive yourself moving through time. Most of us only see snippets of it, like a film, as if you're watching a film. It's kind of staccato, right? But if you go into certain states, you can see all of time link up together, and everyone kind of looks like snakes or serpents as you go through time space, when you can see it more in a totality. So that image there was reflecting the ability to kind of see something moving through time, and I wanted to try to draw it.
Did you ever read the comic book The Invisibles by Grant Morrison?
No, I haven't read it, but I understand he puts a lot of magic stuff in there. Does he do a similar thing?
He does, and at the very end, there's this whole part about where you know, like everyone's revealed. It's also like in the Kurt Vonnegut book. What are they? The Transphagorians? Something like that. And that's how they see time. It's like all these like.
You can see it. You can see it.
Yeah. Oh, I've had experience where it's like that Pink Floyd song when he's like, when I was a child, I caught a fleeting glimpse. Mm-hmm. You know, like probably like, I think I've seen this sort of thing in the corner of my eye, but
it's usually periphery, right? That peripheral perception. Yeah.
That's where you see that stuff. So Rick says, wow, very beautiful. Thank you, Rick. And he also says, I'm so glad that you do these love chats. And thanks, Rick. It's been like something that's really helped me here. Just with the museum, I have the structure where it's like I get up in the morning, I do my thing, I send people things that they order, whatever at the post office. I go to the coffee shop, I come here, I chill for a while, I do the museum, and then I go home. But that just kind of stopped. So I found out that being a showman without a show, you kind of want to have one. So that's why we do these. So I'm glad that you're enjoying these. Kelvin says Doctor Strange was my comic. I love that.
Doctor Strange gets into a lot of that same type of stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that think that Jack Kirby, and who was the other one? Steve Ditko, who's like the creator of
yes,
Dr.
Jack
Strange.
Kirby, so much, man. Genius.
You look at their art, and they were true mystics. Like there was
absolutely interdimensional. They went to interdimensions and then reflected it in the art.
Yeah, and I think that's it's I don't want to get in a Marvel versus DC argument because I always liked DC better when I was a kid, but I think there was something about the cosmos of the Marvel characters that really resonates with people. So,
yeah.
So, how did you discover Kelvin DeWolfe's work?
It was synchronistic. And after we kind of started working together, I found out that we were both born in the same hospital in Ottawa. Like the same exact location of entry onto planet Earth. And we both have 2 children that were born almost the exact same day. They're like within a week of each other. So we had like a lot of synchronicities. But initially I met him because we were both studying acupuncture in Los Angeles. He has a PhD in acupuncture as well. And we were studying herbs. I went to school for that. And he does martial arts, which I have also practiced martial arts. And he was doing Qigong classes. So I started taking his Qigong classes and then was blown away and had immediate interdimensional stuff happen just from doing the Qigong techniques, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it really is like an electromagnetic kind of thing when you use Qigong. So
that's the secretive martial art of China, right? That's always being like by the system.
It's magical too. If you look into a lot of history of magic and witchcraft, you'll see crossover with the Taoist alchemists. Okay. And so a lot of the Taoists were doing very similar things in terms of herbs, intention work, willpower work, like it's very similar. So I really, like him, we both enjoy all the Taoist stuff. And so really we synced up with understanding a lot of stuff used by Taoists and then practicing it. Yeah.
So you mentioned alchemy, which I know is like a deep passion of yours. Like,
yes.
When's the first time that you saw an alchemical illustration and you were like, oh, these people are providing the blueprint. What's going on here?
It's really true. For me, I was in school studying biochemistry, and I had learned about specific scientists, and I like learning about like how do people figure stuff out, right? So I would come across certain scientists and I would be like, how did they know that data? I always want to know, how do people know stuff, right? How do people figure stuff out? And so the more that I tracked my favorite scientists, I found out that they studied the alchemists. So I went to their source material, which was like Paracelsus. And then through there, I found Kircher and like all of these more obscure alchemical sources. And I found out that really they were all practicing astrology, magic, divination, like demonic ways of gaining knowledge. So really, when I found out the origins of science, it was through engaging demonic conversations with deities, with entities, with angels, with dragons, stuff like that. So I was like, wow, science is much cooler than people have any idea about.
Yeah, I think that's really the important part of it, because it's I'll have guests in here and they'll be like, well, alchemy doesn't apply to me because I believe in science. And I'm like, well, who were the first real scientists? Come on.
Do you know that we got scientific method because Rene Descartes had an argument with Satan inside of his mind? That's where science comes from. So if people tell me that they don't believe in a cult because they're scientists, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, man.
Well, that's one thing that the older I get, the more I realize none of us really know what we're talking about. But some of us have an idea to explore and try to figure it out.
Yes.
And this right here, this book, I've been pouring through it. I love it. The Occult I-Ching, the secret language. I have to ask you, why did you decide that there had to be another I-Ching book? Right.
That was a big choice because there's so many. And I was like, number one, who am I to do an I-Ching book? And number two, why would it be necessary? What I wanted to focus on was, like I said, getting knowledge from dragons or serpents, because I do divination as a professional practice. I do tarot cards, I do astrology, and I do I-Ching, and I have for about 20 years now. So yeah, there's one of the drawings that I did in there. But so what I found was that a lot of people don't address where the I-Ching comes from and what the technique, they just like accept this is the I-Ching and you use it. Okay. But like I got to find out where stuff comes from, like who did this and where did they get it? How did they know this? So I look into the history of I-Ching, and it comes from a snake man who talks to a dragon. So, and who looks at a turtle. The snake man, he looks at a turtle and then he talks to a dragon and he extracts all the knowledge of the universe. Right? So that's a good story. I'm interested in propagating that and investigating that you can gain knowledge through conversations with dragons.
So, yeah.
Right?
Far out. Yeah. No, I get it. I was just thinking about my first I-Ching book. It was given to me by a gentleman named Michael Bertio out of Chicago. And he was just like, Steven, I need you to take a bunch of these books. And, you know, downsizing. And he gave me a bunch of books on, just Kant. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this stuff gives me a headache. But then he gave me the Helmut Wilhelm book on the I-Ching. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, there's something to this. And I've never cast thrown the coins. I've never thrown the sticks, but I have an app on my phone.
Yeah, those work just as good.
So I used the app one time because we heard that there may be a problem at a music festival in Southern Ohio or West Virginia.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly which ones it was, but it was pretty much just it was about overabundance of water and you should probably stay out of there. And, you know, people lost their cars and, you know, people lost like thousands of dollars of electronic music gear. Oh. And I was like, I'm glad that we listened to these, you know, these wise words here.
It's very freaky. I got to say, I have not engaged any other tool that even other divination methods are good and I get constant synchronicities with them. But with the I-Ching, it's the most freaky deaky that I've ever played with, for sure.
So can you give our listeners, our viewers, like an idea of, because I mean, synchronicities happen at all times. It's
never ending.
You know, like I walk out the door. Let's see. Oh, all right. So one of my friends, Otho, he was on a live cast versus Bob Larson, the famous fundamentalist.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on there debating with him. And this was a few days ago. And I thought it was wonderful. And I went to bed and I looked at my tracker and I saw that I'd gone 666 or 6,660 steps that day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I dedicate that to Otho. That was wonderful. You know, so it's like pretty much at every moment, you know, the universe is telling you something. But do you have any techniques for people to be able to listen?
Yes.
Be able to, you know, open their mind enough to like.
This is a very good question. Very good question. And how you make the entire world an oracle that you can use divination through, right? Because ultimately any divination system is just reflecting the greater reality, but kind of like condensed into something that you can easily interpret. But it's available. You don't need anything to do divination. You can use perception. Synchronicity indicates that there's interconnectedness. Okay, so when you're experiencing a synchronicity, the more important thing is that it's showing you evidence that the universe has interconnection more than anything. So I always like to point out, don't forget the implication that there's a larger picture of interconnected consciousness when you experience a synchronicity. But to get specific data from a synchronicity that you're receiving, It's like a cluster point. In chaos theory, they call them strange attractors. So I like using that word, strange attractors, just because I like that word. But it's like a cluster point where everything is having a convergence, and that's like a contraction. So when we experience things, they'll contract and expand. That's like the two polar oppositions we experience energetically, right? Every breath you take, you're either going to expand, you're going to contract. So when you experience a synchronicity, it's a contraction causing you to come into focus. So you can utilize those to your benefit by trying to see what are the things trying to converge, and it's trying to direct you to head a certain way. So use it to show you a path to follow. That's the best way that I've found to kind of make use of them.
Have you ever gotten it wrong?
Wrong is an interesting word.
Well,
Have
yeah.
they, right? Like, but in my experience, following synchronicities has led to positive experiences, right? So, and saved me from negative experiences. So I would say that the reason I follow them is because when I hear it and it says, go that way, don't do that. If I'm like, I can do that, that's no problem. And I'm all like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And I do it, I'm like, oh, is the exact thing that it said was going to happen. That's a bummer. So I learned to follow them through trial and error. So in my personal experience, I can't speak for anybody else, but I found when I listen to the direction, it's correct.
Yeah. So while you were saying this, it made me think of my favorite quote by Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
And it's let's see. All matter is merely energy condensed to slow vibration. We're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Would you agree?
I would, yes. That's in one of my favorite Tool songs too, the Third Eye song as well. It's very true. It's when you can open your perception to include his statement, right? It kind of changes how you operate within the system, I feel like, because you gain a larger idea rather than just kind of like picking your way forward blindly and being like, what's wrong? Or like feeling like you're tossed to and fro. It gives you a like kind of way to guide your ship, right?
Yeah. I mean, where would we be without these great philosophers, right? So Jillian, who let's see, I should pull this back up here.
Hi, Jillian.
Jillian's here on the right. She's my partner in the museum and my wonderful wife. She says, "Hi, Maja, nice to see you again. You have to show us that wild painting or tapestry behind you."
It's a good one. So, he's in such a weird position that I like it, but it's basically a Black Panther on a red tree. It's like one of those 70s tapestries.
That is awesome.
It's pretty good.
I'm a fan, and I have to say that it's kind of funny because I know that the image from your book that I pulled up earlier.
Oh, yeah, it has a panther on it.
Yeah.
So, funny.
So there we go. So what are your days like here in the midst of COVID? Are you getting up every day? How are you staying focused? How are you like keeping a magical worldview when things seem so?
Yes. Well, I deal with everyone having to deal with it, right? Because my clients, everyone wants guidance during these times of uncertainty. So for me, I do hikes, like you mentioned. One of the best ways that I clear my mind is to go to nature, and it works immediately. And then I do my practice, my meditation. I have my kids, so they're out of school. So I've been like in mom mode too, and helping my kids through it. And then just been having clients on Skype and phone and helping them. But I do the hikes, the meditation, and my exercise regime, and that keeps me pretty on track. Yeah.
So when I was out in LA, Julie and I were there we were there in February. And we met up, and right beforehand we'd gone on this hike. It was really wonderful because I was in this, for some reason I had woken up with this just like, it was a bitter mood, and I was just like, what is going on? But then what's that park The one with the observatory?
Griffith Park, yeah.
So we were over there, and I saw a coyote, and I heard some yipping, and I saw this coyote run by, and, you know, true trickster. And, you know, he was pretty much just like, come on, man, you're on vacation. You got to get over this. And it was like this, just, you know, the freedom that was just like lifted off of me.
Right?
And,
it really does. It's like a wash.
Yeah. And then we we went and hung out with you for a bit. It was a lot of fun. So
it was so fun. Yeah. You told me you saw the coyote right before you guys got there, right?
Yeah. And it was like, that was a really wonderful feeling. So I have to ask you this. You are involved with witchcraft.
Yes, true.
When did you ever hear about witchcraft as a thing? Like, was it like a thing where you walked to a bookstore and you left, like, or maybe you're watching TV and you're like, oh, Samantha, she's living my life here. Or maybe you saw a book similar to this one here.
I saw that one early on. Yes, that was a biggie. For me, I was a huge library nerd.
Right.
Worked in libraries pretty much my whole life. I was at the Philosophical Research Society as their librarian for about 11 years.
No witches. Sorry.
What's that?
I said no witches. But yeah.
I know. Very sad. Very sad. Sausage club going on over there. But so when I was in my teens was the first time I really came across it through being exposed to libraries. And so I was looking for materials talking about plants because I was always very into plants. And my grandfather was a geologist who had an incredible garden. And so I was looking at actually more scientific materials for plants and rocks. And I came across all this pagan witchcraft stuff. And that was it. It was game over after that. Yeah.
It all makes sense. So if you were going to suggest like an herb or a root for somebody to carry around right now, do you have one?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. A lot of the one going around the interwebs and people's in the witchy world has been Four Thieves vinegar. I don't know if you've seen that.
We were actually last week we spoke with Judica Illis, who is a really incredible witch. She wrote these incredible books right here that, you know, I love the complete book of witchcraft by Raymond Buckland, of course, but that's only a few hundred pages.
Those look amazing. Those look amazing. Yes.
And we had her talk about the Four Thieves. What is it? A serum?
They use oil or vinegar sometimes. Different carriers, depending. I gotta say, the rosemary in those is pretty much antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, good for your brain, good for your thinking, your memory. It's a little volatile. Like we were having a conversation. I like poisons, just a little tiny bit, just a touch of poisons. You know, the dose is really what makes it medicinal. But yeah, the rosemary in there, if you could, I think take one herb around and even just, you know, wiping rosemary on your hands, stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah. I always have some rosemary around. So, what's next? What do you got going on? You got any books or anything? Are you writing anything right now?
I'm always writing. I've been working on a couple different books. One about shadows and demonology in terms of how it relates to disease and healing with plants, and also like things like exorcism or energy work, just because I do a lot of energy type of work. And I'm very like obsessed with the idea of exorcisms. A lot of people think of exorcisms with the Catholic Church, right? But of course, pagans have been performing exorcisms for thousands of years. So I've been doing a lot of research into the history of exorcism and kind of where it originates in Babylonian or Sumerian culture. Some of the first written ones anyway. I'm sure it goes deep into shamanism before that. But I wanted to write a book about it that was from a non-Catholic perspective, because most of the material that you see on that is all Catholic. And I was like, this is garbaggio, man. This goes so into other cultures that people need, I feel like, to have access to that research because it's very helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. I can't wait till you publish that, because it's like, here at the museum, of course, we always have issues with people telling, like they'll come in and they'll tell us these problems, etc. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do you do this stuff without getting the Catholic Church involved? It's something that definitely needs to be explored way more. So you mentioned working with the shadow, and I have to laugh because I saw a really funny meme the other day. Let's see if I can do it. And it was like, witches working with the shadow, and it's a turtle. And I was like,
that's a good one. Good one. You got to do shadow work, man. I don't care what your faith or practice is, like the importance of shadow work. If you're going to be a whole total person who comes into all the parts of you and ability to see reality as it is, you got to do the shadow stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way I always look at it is you can't really be a good person unless you can figure out what makes you awful.
You'll hide it from yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be, you're going to be tricked by yourself and by other people.
Yeah, and it's like, if you're just walking around all day just being like, I'm kicking ass at everything I do and not paying attention to like the shadow, like the reverse of like what you're trying to do in the world. It's
with you, it's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's no, I completely agree. Yeah. So have you been doing anything for entertainment?
We just watched that show Dark. Have you seen it? It's on Netflix. It's about time travel. It was pretty good. It was a German show that it's in German, so you have to like either get the dubbed version or do subtitles, but it takes place in the woods and in caves and involves time travel from a nuclear energy plant. And I have to say, I haven't seen like something that I really was into in a while, and that one felt very satisfying.
Dark, okay. There's something on Netflix that a couple nights of insomnia I watched that I thought was wild. It was a total hoot. It didn't make any sense, and it didn't really follow the person that it's based on that I know about, but it's called Freud. And
I haven't seen that.
It's like it's almost like Freud thinks he's Sherlock Holmes, and he's, like Freud, my understanding of Freud is he wasn't really into hypnotism, but this Freud is way into it. And
this is a misconception. Freud, at the end of his life, said that he regretted not doing more research into psychic phenomenon specifically. And he was a total believer, but he had to present himself as not that way in order to gain credibility in the kind of academic background. But he was totally into all that stuff. So not to interrupt you, but that's
no. But this is Freud as a young man. So
interesting.
It's really weird, like watching it, and it's in German, and and when I watch it, it's always under the influence of insomnia. When I watch it, so it gets me into that like weird hypnagogic state.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah. So, do you have anything that we can do for protection right now?
For protection, for me personally, I use a grid that I make with the 4 directions and the 4 archangels. So my boundary work that I do, it's really simple. You call in the 4 corners, right? Just pretty standard, like most witches will do before opening and closing every single thing that you do. And that's one of the standard, easy peasy ones. 4 corners is what I do every single time. And for clients, when I do it for protection for clients, they get immediate results. So I'm really a true believer in the 4 corners, 4 directions. Really simple. Just call it in. I do it morning, noon, and night.
Really? Okay. I found that on days, probably my favorite thing to do here in the museum is the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram.
Yeah.
And I do it. Sometimes I go through periods where I do it like every day when I come in.
Yeah.
And then we go through like maybe a couple weeks, and then I'll be like, everything's been off for a while. Oh yeah. I think it's time for me to get back into it. So it's these waves, right?
Yeah.
And I think tomorrow before we reopen, I'm going to have to do a hell of a one. You know?
I do salt too. I got to really say salt is another one of those really easy, seems so simple, but every time, especially if I do a crazy healing saltwater bath after immediately, like, and clearings on people's houses, I do sea salt all the time. Works really well. It's one of those standard ones that I use every single time because it's simple and has efficacy.
So, where could our audience find out more about you, Maja?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty available out there. My website is witchofthedawn.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I usually post events that I do or things like that. Most of the data is on my website or social media.
Do you have any events coming up?
Right now, no.
I know it's not really easy to do.
I know, right? Just the show with you guys, and then I had just another thing people can check out for entertainment if you guys have Netflix. I had worked with I worked with Duncan Trussell on Midnight Gospel. So folks, he's so brilliant and genius, and the show is so like transformational and interdimensional. So I feel like folks should check that out too. But yeah, I do fun stuff, and I usually just kind of announce it. Yeah. Yeah,
I would have to say that people that, if they ever spend any time here at the museum listening to me ramble on, and they have a taste for people rambling on, they really need to check out the Midnight Gospel. It's essentially Duncan Russell's podcast, but with a narrative.
Yep.
Bookends.
A sequence. And,
very, very fascinating guests, all of them. And you worked on it. What did you?
Just in the writer's room with him doing consulting on it. Yeah, it was really a blast.
That must have been really wild because, I mean, it's like a new dawn of like psychedelic research that's going on in the world, and he's definitely in the forefront of all of it. So
very great. Very great.
Yeah, how fun. It's that's another like probably best a bit of a late night setting.
Yes.
Put your phone away. You know, because it's like all the weird little gags in the background.
Yep.
You know, like at first I was just like, oh, these are distracting. And then I'm like, oh.
It's like layered, yeah.
This is like writing Jim Morrison's Snake, you know?
It's great, yeah.
So I think it's probably time for us to wrap up here. Do you want to stick around for a minute? I'll give you a proper goodbye while I say goodbye to the audience here.
Oh, it cut out. Now I'm back.
She's frozen. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, here's me. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with us. Remember, tomorrow we're going to be reopening the Buckland Museum, and you can order tickets online at bucklandmuseum.org. You know, I just really want to say to everybody here, you know, we really appreciate the support. It means so much to me that, you know, like people come in, chime in, comment, say hello. It's really wonderful. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say except for this. Stay witchy, my friends. All right. Take care.